Humanity has repeatedly vanished beneath the surface to survive. We are going to explore 15 massive underground cities built as shelters from ancient cataclysms. By the end, you will understand the astonishing scale and ingenious engineering that allowed entire civilizations to live in darkness for generations. How did thousands of people manage air and water deep within solid rock, and what forced them to choose a life in perpetual twilight? When you think about safety, how deep would you be willing to go? A single knock on a wall can change everything we think we know about history. In 1963, a farmer in the Cappadocia region of Turkey was simply doing some home renovations, a task as ordinary as any other. But when a section of his basement wall crumbled away, it revealed not more earth, but a dark, gaping passage descending into absolute blackness. This was no cellar. It was an entrance to a lost world. That accidental discovery led to the first and perhaps most famous of our underground sanctuaries, Derinkuyu. The name itself means deep well, a fitting title for a city that plunges approximately 200 feet straight down into the volcanic rock, a staggering 18 levels deep. This was not a temporary hideout. It was a permanent, self-contained fortress designed to protect an entire community. At its peak, Derinkuyu could shelter up to 20,000 people, a population the size of a small ancient metropolis, all living entirely beneath the earth. The builders, most likely early Christians fleeing periods of intense conflict, carved a world of astonishing complexity from the soft stone. Think about the most basic human needs. Air deep within the mountain, they engineered a network of over 50 ventilation shafts, some stretching all the way to the surface, providing a constant, life-giving flow of fresh air to every inhabited level. Water came from a deep, protected well, tapped far below the surface to ensure enemies could not poison the supply. They carved out stables for livestock, spacious communal kitchens, churches for worship, and even sophisticated wine and oil presses. Every detail speaks of a society prepared to live in this sunless realm for months, perhaps even years, but perhaps the most ingenious feature was its security system. Throughout the labyrinthine corridors, massive, circular stone doors, some weighing over 1,000 pounds, were set into grooves in the rock. In a moment of crisis, these doors could be rolled shut from the inside, sealing off entire sections of the city like a stone vault. Each level could be isolated, creating a series of defensive fallback positions. The logistics are mind-boggling, managing waste, storing enough food for thousands, maintaining social order and spiritual life in perpetual twilight, all without a single electric light or modern tool. This was not a panicked dig for survival. It was a calculated, generational project born from a simple, terrifying necessity: the need to disappear completely from a world that had become too dangerous above. Derinkuyu stands as a breathtaking monument to human resilience, a city built not to celebrate life in the sun, but to preserve it in the deepest dark. Yet Derinkuyu was not alone in its shadowed ambition. Just a few miles away, another subterranean metropolis lies hidden within the same soft volcanic rock, a sister city with a different architectural philosophy. This is Kaymaklı. If Derinkuyu is a vertical fortress plunging deep into the earth, then Kaymaklı is a sprawling horizontal labyrinth, a network of tunnels and chambers that feels less like a tower and more like an ant colony meticulously carved for human life. While it does not descend as far, its genius lies in its breadth. Excavations have revealed 4 expansive floors so far, with narrow, low-ceilinged passages that force you to move in single file, connecting a dense warren of living quarters, storage rooms, stables, and communal spaces. The entire complex was ingeniously designed around a central, massive ventilation shaft, a brilliant piece of passive engineering. From this main artery, smaller shafts branched off like capillaries, ensuring fresh air could circulate to even the most remote chambers, preventing stagnation and allowing life to flourish. Security, as in Derinkuyu, was paramount. Each level was protected by those now familiar, massive circular stone doors, which could be rolled shut from the inside to seal off entire sections in an instant. But what truly brings Kaymaklı to life, what makes its silent stones speak, is the subtle evidence of the people who called it home. Look up at the ceilings in the old kitchens and living areas, and you will see them darkened by the soot of centuries of cooking fires. In the walls, countless small niches were carved out, each one designed to hold a simple oil lamp, casting a flickering glow onto the daily routines of families. These are not the marks of a temporary panic shelter. They are the accumulated traces of generations who adapted to a life of perpetual twilight, who raised children, prepared meals, and maintained their community in a world without a sun. This was not merely survival. It was a sustained, organized society choosing depth over danger, carving out a fragile but enduring peace in the heart of the stone. But the story of these hidden cities is not confined to the ancient world or distant lands. Far from the volcanic plains of Turkey, beneath the rolling green hills and quiet farmlands of northern France, lies another kind of underground sanctuary, one that tells a more modern yet equally haunting tale. This is the Cité Souterraine de Naours. From the surface, the Picardy countryside is a picture of pastoral peace. Yet just 90 feet below the soil, a sprawling labyrinth of tunnels and chambers stretches for nearly 2 miles, a hidden city with over 300 separate rooms. Its origins are humble, begun in the 3rd century as simple limestone quarries. But over the centuries, as wave after wave of conflict swept across Europe, the people of this region did something remarkable. They began to expand those old quarries, transforming them into a permanent refuge, a subterranean village designed to vanish an entire community from the world above. They carved out everything a town would need to function in secret. There were stables for livestock, a central town square for gatherings, multiple deep wells for fresh water, and even a dedicated bakery with its own oven, ensuring that even in hiding, life could carry on with a semblance of normalcy. Small chapels provided space for solace and prayer, their silent altars bearing witness to generations of fear and faith. But what makes Naours uniquely powerful, what sends a shiver through the cool, damp air, is the graffiti. The walls here are not silent. They are a palimpsest of human desperation and hope, etched into the soft stone by the hands of those who sought shelter across vastly different eras. During the brutal 100 Years' War, families huddled here as armies clashed overhead. Centuries later, in the nightmare of World War I, the tunnels became a secret barracks and hospital for soldiers. Most moving are the inscriptions left by young Anzac troops, Australian and New Zealand men far from home, who carved their names, regiments, and dates into the walls as they waited for the next horrifying push toward the front lines. In these markings, history collapses. The fear of a medieval peasant fleeing marauding knights and the terror of a 20th century soldier awaiting artillery fire become one and the same, connected by the universal, timeless need for a few feet of protective stone. Naours is not a city built for a single cataclysm, but a shelter reused and re-sanctified across 1,500 years of recurring conflict. It stands as a sobering reminder that the need to hide from the sky is not an ancient anomaly, but a recurring thread in the human story, written in limestone and left for us to find. Salt can preserve more than just food. It can preserve an entire civilization's spirit. Deep beneath the town of Wieliczka in Poland, a descent of over 1,000 feet leads you into a world that defies every expectation of what a mine should be. For over 700 years from the 13th century onward, miners did not just extract salt here. They built a kingdom from it. This is not a dark, cramped tunnel, but a sprawling subterranean metropolis with over 175 miles of passages, vast cavernous chambers, serene underground lakes, and even its own microclimate. While its primary purpose was economic, the sheer scale and stability of these excavated spaces created an unintended sanctuary, a hidden city that offered shelter during times of conflict above. Yet the true wonder of Wieliczka is not just in its size, but in what the miners chose to create within that endless dark. Generations of these workers, men who spent their lives in the dust and grit of extraction, became unexpected artists. With their tools, they slowly, patiently transformed the very salt rock they were mining into something transcendent. They carved elaborate statues depicting myth and history. They built intricate chapels for prayer, and they left behind a legacy etched not in light but in crystalline halite. The crown jewel of this underground world is the Chapel of Saint Kinga. Walking into this chamber is an experience that silences every visitor. It is a cathedral hewn entirely from salt, over 150 feet long, with vaulted ceilings, altarpieces, and breathtakingly detailed reliefs illustrating biblical scenes, all carved directly into the walls. Even the magnificent chandeliers that illuminate the space are crafted from salt crystals, refracting light into 1,000 glittering points. This was not commissioned by kings or bishops. It was the passionate, decades-long project of the miners themselves, a testament to their need to imprint meaning, beauty, and their own identity onto an environment defined by harsh labor. Here, in a place dedicated to survival and industry, they built a sanctuary for the soul. Wieliczka shows us that the human drive is not merely to endure, but to create. Even when the world above turned dangerous and these caverns served as a refuge, the people within them continued to sculpt their faith and their story into the walls, ensuring that their legacy would be one of breathtaking beauty, preserved in salt for centuries. A city can have two hearts, one beating in the sunlight and another, quieter one, pulsing in the dark below. High upon a sheer volcanic cliff in central Italy, the stunning medieval city of Orvieto commands breathtaking views of the countryside. For centuries, its towering cathedral and stone palaces presented an image of impregnable strength. But its true secret was not in its height, but in its depth. Directly beneath the cobblestone streets and piazzas lies Orvieto's hidden twin, an astonishing maze of over 1,200 tunnels, stairwells, cisterns, and chambers carved into the soft volcanic rock known as tuff. This labyrinth did not appear overnight. Its story begins with the ancient Etruscans, a sophisticated civilization that first settled this defensible plateau. They initiated the Great Excavation, carving deep shafts down through the cliff face to reach vital water sources and creating cool, stable storage rooms for grain and oil. Their work laid the foundation for a subterranean world that would expand for over 2,500 years. When the medieval era brought relentless conflict and the constant threat of siege to the region, the people of Orvieto made a brilliant strategic decision. Instead of just reinforcing their walls, they massively expanded the existing tunnels, transforming them into a full-scale, livable refuge. Entire families carved out private cellars and apartments directly beneath their own homes. But these were not just panic rooms, they were fully equipped extensions of daily life. People built ingenious pigeon coops into the walls, providing a steady source of food and, critically, a means of communication with the outside world via messenger birds. They carved out dedicated workshops with presses for producing olive oil, ensuring a valuable trade commodity and a source of light and nourishment could continue uninterrupted. The entire community developed a profound, intimate relationship with the stone beneath their feet. This was a strategy of passive defense, a philosophy where disappearing became a more powerful weapon than any sword or catapult. When enemy armies arrived at the base of the cliff, they would find a silent, seemingly abandoned city above. Meanwhile, below their feet, the entire population carried on milling grain, pressing oil, tending to children, and waiting in secure, supplied comfort. The siege would eventually break, not by force of arms, but by the simple, demoralizing fact that there was no one there to conquer. Orvieto's underground network is a masterclass in resilient urban planning, a city within a city built not for glory, but for graceful, enduring survival. It proves that sometimes the most powerful way to protect a way of life is not to stand and fight on the surface, but to quietly slip beneath it, preserving your community intact until the storm above finally passes. The instinct to seek shelter below ground is not bound by ancient history. It is a thread that stretches unbroken into the living memory of our modern world. Beneath the vibrant, modern streets of Beijing, a city pulsing with life and light, lies a hidden monument to a far darker chapter, a place known as Dixia Cheng, the underground city. Constructed primarily in the 1960s and 70s, during the height of the Cold War, this was not a project carved by hand over centuries, but a massive, state-mandated civil defense effort built with concrete and urgency. Its purpose, however, was hauntingly familiar to the builders of Derinkuyu or Orvieto, to protect an entire urban population from a cataclysm raining down from above. In this case, the fear was not of invading armies on horseback, but of aerial bombardment. The scale is almost incomprehensible. The network of reinforced tunnels is reported to stretch for dozens of miles, a labyrinthine world capable of sheltering up to 6 million people, essentially the entire city at the time. This was not a mere bunker. It was designed as a fully functional subterranean replica of the world above. Within its echoing passageways, planners built hospitals ready for the injured, schools to continue children's education, theaters and communal dining halls to maintain morale, and even factories and granaries to sustain a sealed-off society. Ventilation systems, blast doors, and independent water sources were all engineered with the cold precision of 20th-century technology, yet they served the same primal need as the air shafts of Kaymaklı. Walking through sections open to the public today is a profoundly surreal experience. The walls are adorned with faded propaganda murals from the era, depicting workers and soldiers united in patriotic struggle, a stark visual reminder of the specific geopolitical fears that fueled its construction. It feels both futuristic and archaic, a space-age version of a very ancient human solution. Dixia Cheng stands as a powerful, sobering symbol. It proves that the drive to dig, to hide, to preserve the community in the face of existential threat is not a relic. It is a persistent strand in our psychology, continually adapting to the specific terrors of each new age. From the fear of the sword to the dread of the warplane, the response, carved in stone or poured in concrete, remains eerily the same: go deep and wait for the sky to become safe again. Sometimes the greatest threat comes not from armies but from the sky itself. In the vast, sun-scorched deserts of southern Tunisia, the Berber people of Matmata faced a cataclysm of a different kind, a relentless, unforgiving environment where the heat of the day could be lethal and the cold of the night equally brutal. Their ingenious solution was not to build up, but to dig in, creating a unique architectural form that turned the harsh earth into a protective embrace. They excavated enormous central courtyards, great pits sunk straight down into the soft, sandy ground. From the walls of these sunken courtyards, they then tunneled outward, carving out cool, dark rooms for living, sleeping, and storing food. These are not the interconnected tunnels of a single fortress city, but a sprawling community of individual pit dwellings, clustered together across the arid landscape like craters on the moon. Each home is a self-contained world, centered around that open-air courtyard, which serves as the heart of family life, a place for light, air, and social gathering, all while remaining hidden from the searing winds and extreme temperatures at the surface. The genius is in the passive climate control. The massive thermal mass of the surrounding Earth acts as a natural insulator. During the ferocious midday heat, the underground rooms remain remarkably cool. At night, when the desert cold descends, the Earth slowly releases the warmth it absorbed during the day, gently tempering the interior spaces. This is architecture in perfect harmony with catastrophe, not as a sudden event, but as a permanent, grinding condition. Matmata broadens our very definition of what these underground spaces were for. This was not a temporary hideaway from an invading force, but a sustainable, long-term adaptation to an environmental reality that made surface life nearly impossible. It represents a profound philosophical shift from merely surviving a disaster to ingeniously thriving within one. For generations, the Berber people did not fight their harsh world. They learned to live within its logic, carving out a gentle, resilient existence in the quiet, temperate dark below the burning sun. Their homes remind us that a cataclysm can be slow and silent, and that the deepest shelters are sometimes built not from fear of other people, but from a respectful, creative dialogue with an unforgiving earth. The landscape itself could become a silent ally in the face of terror. Far from the engineered labyrinths of Cappadocia, beneath the rolling green Mendip Hills in Somerset, England, lies a different kind of sanctuary, one born from opportunism and immediate fear. This is the network known as the Caves of Burrington. This was not a single, planned underground city, but a scattered constellation of natural refuges, a place where the very bones of the earth offered a desperate hiding place. In the early Middle Ages, the coastline of Britain lived under a shadow, the terrifying, unpredictable threat of Viking raids. These swift, brutal attacks from the sea could descend upon a village without warning, bringing conflict and hardship. For the local families living in this vulnerable region, the landscape presented a grim but viable solution. They looked to the hills, to places like Gochurch Cavern, and saw not just geological formations, but ready-made fortresses. These were natural limestone caverns carved by water over millennia, now repurposed with human urgency. Archaeological discoveries here tell a quiet, poignant story. Fragments of simple pottery, lost tools, and the remnants of small hearths suggest not a brief, panicked scramble, but organized retreats. Families would gather their most vital possessions and disappear into these damp, echoing chambers for weeks at a time. They enhanced what nature provided, perhaps stacking stones to create better windbreaks, carving simple shelves into the soft rock, or using narrow tunnel entrances as natural choke points a single person could defend. This is subterranean shelter in its most raw and immediate form. There were no grand ventilation shafts or rolling stone doors, only the deep, constant cool of the cave and the profound silence of the stone. The strategy was pure concealment, a communal game of hide and seek where losing meant everything. Local folklore still whispers of these times, of entire communities vanishing from sight until the longships had sailed away, leaving only scorched earth above. The Caves of Burrington demonstrate a fundamental truth about our relationship with catastrophe. When faced with an overwhelming threat, humans display a remarkable ability to see potential in their environment, to blend immediate need with what the landscape passively offers. It was a simpler, more desperate form of resilience, where survival meant becoming a temporary part of the mountain, waiting in the dark until the world above grew quiet once more. A cliff face can become a fortress and a canyon wall a home. In the sun-baked mesas of what is now the southwestern United States, the ancestral Puebloan people perfected a different kind of sheltered living, one that speaks the same language of security as the deepest tunnel cities. This is Mesa Verde. From a distance, the sheer sandstone cliffs appear as silent, impassive walls, but look closer into the shadowed alcoves carved by millennia of water and wind, and you will see entire cities suspended in mid-air. The magnificent Cliff Palace, the largest of these dwellings, is a breathtaking sight, a complex of over 150 rooms and 23 kivas, or ceremonial chambers, built snugly into a vast south-facing cavern. It is not underground in the literal sense, but it follows an identical principle, using the earth itself as both shield and sanctuary. The massive overhang of rock above served as a permanent, unshakable roof, protecting the community from scorching summer sun, torrential rain, and winter snow. The cliff itself was the ultimate defensive wall, with access limited to a series of narrow hand and toe hold trails and removable ladders that could be pulled up in times of threat. Here, security was achieved not by depth but by height and concealment. Life in these cliff dwellings was a carefully calibrated response to a changing world. Scholars believe that during periods of prolonged drought and growing social pressures in the 13th century, communities consolidated and moved to these highly defensible, resource-efficient locations. The stone masonry is masterful, with bricks perfectly fitted without mortar, creating multi-story structures that hug the contours of the alcove. Small windows and doors were strategically placed to capture the low winter sun for warmth while blocking the high, harsh summer light, a brilliant form of passive solar design carved directly into the landscape. They built reservoirs to capture precious rainwater and stored surplus crops within the cool, stable rooms. This was a society that adapted to environmental and social cataclysm by retreating into the embrace of the stone, creating a sustainable, fortified existence high above the canyon floor. Mesa Verde expands our understanding of refuge. It proves that the drive for a protected habitat is not just about digging down, but about finding any natural fortress the earth provides. Whether carved into the depths of a volcano or the face of a cliff, the human imperative remains constant: to find a space within the living rock where a community can endure, wait, and preserve its way of life against the uncertainties of the world above. A sanctuary can be carved not just from fear but from profound devotion. In the highlands of Ethiopia, a different purpose for descending into the stone emerges, one that transforms the very concept of an underground city. This is Lalibela. Unlike the hidden fortresses of Cappadocia, this was not built to conceal a population from an enemy. It was constructed to reveal a connection to the divine, a spiritual metropolis literally excavated from the living rock in the 12th and 13th centuries. The site consists of 11 breathtaking churches, each one not built upward with bricks but carved downward, directly into the volcanic mountainside. The builders began by cutting a deep, rectangular trench into the plateau, isolating a single, massive block of stone. Then, with astonishing patience and precision, they hollowed out this monolith from the inside, chiseling windows, doors, columns, and vaulted ceilings to create a complete, freestanding house of worship that remains connected to the earth only at its base. The most iconic of these, Bet Georgis, or the Church of St. George, is shaped like a perfect Greek cross, a magnificent symbol sunken into the ground, its roof now level with the surrounding plain. But the true genius of Lalibela lies in its connections. These individual churches are not isolated monuments. They are linked by a labyrinth of narrow, ceremonial tunnels, drainage channels, and deep ceremonial passages, creating an entire hidden landscape for worship and pilgrimage. This interconnected, secluded nature, while designed for spiritual journey, created an unintended but powerful sanctuary. During periods of regional conflict, the complex secluded trenches and tunnels offered refuge to pilgrims and clergy, a sacred fortress where faith itself could be protected. The arduous descent into its sunken courtyards mimics a symbolic descent into a holy underworld, a deliberate architectural choice that made the space feel separate from the temporal world above. Here, the drive to preserve a cultural and religious identity mirrors the physical survival instinct seen elsewhere. The stone was not a hiding place, but a vessel, carved to protect and magnify a community's soul against any threat of erosion or external pressure. Lalibela asks us to reconsider the motives behind these great excavations. It shows that the impulse to go deep into the earth can be an act of creation as much as concealment, a way to forge an eternal, unassailable home for the spirit, ensuring that what matters most is literally grounded in the bedrock of the world. A neutral void can become whatever humanity needs it to be. Beneath the bustling streets and sunlit plazas of the Ukrainian port city of Odessa lies a darkness of a different order, a labyrinth so vast it defies comprehension. This is the network known as the Odessa Catacombs. Originally, this was not a sanctuary but an industrial project, the result of 2 centuries of quarrying the soft limestone used to build the elegant city above. Miners extracted the stone, leaving behind a staggering, chaotic web of tunnels that now stretches for over 1,500 miles, a hidden mirror world 3 times the length of the entire Italian peninsula. Its original purpose was purely utilitarian, but the sheer, disorienting scale of this man-made maze meant it would never remain empty for long. With countless unmarked passages, dead ends, and identical-looking corridors, it is a place where the very concept of direction dissolves, making it the perfect place to vanish without a trace. This inherent neutrality is what defines the catacombs' haunting legacy. In the 19th century, these pitch-black corridors became a haven for smugglers moving goods away from the eyes of authorities, their activities echoing in the silent passages. But the catacombs' most profound chapter came during the brutal conflict of World War II. When Odessa was occupied, this chaotic underground network transformed into something else entirely, a secret city of resistance. Soviet partisans established hidden headquarters, hospitals, and printing presses deep within the stone. They could strike at targets above and then melt back into a world that invaders were too afraid to enter in force, for to pursue them was to risk becoming forever lost. The catacombs became a vessel for raw survival and defiant hope, a neutral space given profound purpose by courage and necessity. Yet this same anonymity means such spaces have no inherent morality. They can shelter the persecuted just as easily as they can conceal activities meant to evade the light of day. The Odessa Catacombs, in all their immense, shadowy complexity, teach us a crucial lesson about these underground realms. They are not inherently good or evil. They are blank slates carved by geology and industry, waiting for our stories of fear, defiance, secrecy, or sanctuary to fill them. Their role is defined entirely by the desperate, determined people who step into the dark, reminding us that the earth itself does not judge. It simply provides the stage for the full spectrum of human struggle. The earth beneath a city can hold its entire history in layers. Beneath the modern streets and shops of Nottingham, England, lies a world of soft, workable sandstone, a canvas that has been carved and recarved for more than 1,000 years. This is not a single, unified underground city, but a sprawling, chaotic collection of over 800 separate caves and tunnels, each one telling a different story of the city's life above. This subterranean landscape has been perpetually reinvented, serving not one grand purpose, but dozens of ordinary and extraordinary ones across the centuries. In the medieval era, these cool, dark spaces were perfect for practical trades. Brewers carved out malt kilns to dry grain for ale, their walls still stained with the smoke of ancient fires. Tanneries used the constant temperature for curing leather, while others served as cellars, storerooms, and even secret chapels. Some caves, with their heavy doors and damp walls, became dungeons, places of confinement that speak to a darker side of civic order. Later, these same passages echoed with the lively sounds of taverns and pubs, where people gathered in the unique, cozy atmosphere only a rock-cut room can provide. But when a new kind of cataclysm darkened the skies of the 20th century, the caves were ready. During the relentless bombing raids of World War II, the city returned instinctively to its oldest sanctuary. The sandstone chambers were hastily reinforced and transformed into official air raid shelters and command centers, protecting thousands of citizens from the devastation raining down above. A network that once held barrels of ale now sheltered families, its familiar, solid presence offering a profound psychological comfort. This is the true lesson of Nottingham's underworld continuity. Unlike a city built for a single, apocalyptic event, this represents a persistent urban tradition, a continuous thread of adaptive reuse where the subterranean space is never truly abandoned, only waiting for its next purpose. It reveals how the underground can become an integral, evolving organ of the city itself, a permanent backup system woven into the very fabric of civic life. The caves are a physical archive, their walls recording each era's fears and necessities, proving that sometimes the deepest roots of a community are not in its monuments, but in the hollowed-out spaces just beneath its feet. The desert itself can be carved into a monument to endurance. In the heart of Jordan's rugged landscape, the Nabateans did not merely seek shelter within the earth, they commanded the very cliffs to reveal a city. Petra, the legendary Rose City, stands as perhaps the most breathtaking open-air expression of the principles we have seen in darkness. Its iconic treasury, a facade of impossible elegance glowing in hues of pink and orange, is not a building in the traditional sense. It is a mountain sculpted into architecture, a tomb and a temple carved directly from the living sandstone. This was not a hidden refuge, but a bold declaration of power and permanence in a land defined by scarcity. The Nabateans chose a location of profound strategic genius, a narrow, winding canyon called the Sick that served as a natural, easily defensible gateway. Any caravan or army approaching would be funneled through this towering, shadowy cleft, emerging suddenly into the sunlight to face the splendor of the city, a psychological masterstroke designed to awe and intimidate. But Petra's true survival secret, its answer to the cataclysm of relentless aridity, lay not in its facades but in what the Nabateans engineered out of sight. They transformed their desert fortress into a hydrological wonder. With astonishing skill, they carved a vast network of channels, dams, and underground cisterns into the rock, capturing every precious drop of seasonal rainwater. This system fed immense reservoirs and supplied over 100 public fountains and baths, creating an artificial oasis in the heart of the trade routes. The city's wealth and lifeblood literally flowed through stone. While the grand tombs are what we see today, archaeologists believe the cliff faces hide more than we know. Beyond the famous monuments, the sandstone is honeycombed with countless caves, chambers, and tunnels. Some were simple dwellings or storerooms, but others may have formed a hidden, secondary network for storage, escape, or controlling the vital water supply during times of siege. Petra represents a sublime fusion of the practical and the majestic. It is a city that used geology as both shield and canvas, leveraging a defensible canyon and a mastery of water to not just survive isolation, but to flourish as a dazzling cosmopolitan hub. Its legacy is a powerful reminder that survival against environmental catastrophe is not always about retreating into darkness. Sometimes it is about reshaping the light itself, turning a barren valley into a thriving, rose-colored sanctuary through sheer ingenuity and will. The sun here is not a source of life, but a force to be escaped. In the remote, red heart of the Australian outback, the modern mining town of Coober Pedy offers a startling vision of subterranean life continued into the present day. Here, the majority of the town's residents do not live in houses under the blazing sky, but in homes they call dugouts, cool, dark chambers carved directly into the soft sandstone hillside. This community exists not because of war or invasion, but because of a permanent environmental cataclysm, the relentless, searing heat that can make the surface world uninhabitable for much of the year. The name itself, taken from the Aboriginal words for white man's hole in the ground, tells you everything you need to know about its origin. It began with opal miners in the early 20th century, who, while searching for the precious gemstones, realized the excavated spaces they created offered a perfect refuge from the punishing desert conditions. What started as a practical necessity for miners quickly evolved into a permanent architectural tradition. Entire neighborhoods were established underground, not as temporary shelters, but as fully appointed modern homes. Walk through Coober Pedy today, and you will find a complete, functioning town that has simply turned its back on the surface. There are underground churches, like the remarkable Serbian Orthodox Church, with its dome and icons painstakingly carved from the living rock. You can stay in an underground hotel, shop in an underground bookstore, and even play a round of pool in an underground bar, all at a constant, comfortable temperature, while a scorching 50°C heatwave rages outside. The dugouts are equipped with all the conveniences of the 21st century: electricity, running water, internet, and modern kitchens, all installed within walls that echo an ancient building method. This seamless fusion is the town's true innovation. It proves that the human impulse to live within the earth is not a historical curiosity, but a continuously adaptable strategy. In Coober Pedy, the drive for comfort and survival has created a unique cultural identity, a community bonded by its shared choice to live differently. They have taken the timeless logic of Matmata and given it a modern twist, using machinery instead of hand tools, but answering the same fundamental challenge: how to build a sustainable life in a place where the very air and light can become a threat. This is not a retreat from the world, but a clever, comfortable engagement with it, demonstrating that sometimes the most advanced solution is also the most primal: to simply go inside the earth and let the stone do what it does best: protect. The past is not just a record, it is a blueprint for the future. Having walked through 15 ancient marvels carved from fear, faith, and necessity, we arrive now at a city that does not yet exist, except in the minds of architects, engineers, and dreamers. This is the 15th and final city on our journey, the speculative metropolis of tomorrow, an underground habitat designed for the cataclysms of our own age. The challenges we face today are global and systemic: rising sea levels from a warming climate, the intense pressure of overpopulation in dense urban centers, and the lingering shadow of potential global conflict. In response, a fascinating and serious conversation has begun, one that looks not to the stars for escape, but directly beneath our feet for a solution. The ancient world is no longer just a subject for archaeologists, it has become a textbook for futurists. Modern designers are studying the passive ventilation of Kaymaklı, the water capture genius of Petra, and the community-scale planning of Derinkuyu. They see in these structures not primitive shelters, but masterclasses in sustainable engineering, achieved with nothing but simple tools and profound understanding of the Earth's own systems. Imagine a future urban development, not as a cluster of gleaming towers, but as a vast, multi-layered network built into stable bedrock. These conceptual cities prioritize radical energy efficiency, using the Earth's constant geothermal temperature to drastically reduce heating and cooling needs. They plan for closed-loop water systems that recycle every drop, and they integrate vertical agriculture lit by tailored spectra of LED light, producing food within the city's own walls. The goal is a self-contained, resilient habitat that could withstand external shocks, whether they be climatic, economic, or social. This forward-looking vision forces a profound and uncomfortable question upon us. As the pressures on our surface world intensify, will we, like so many civilizations before us, be compelled to seek our salvation in the depths? The psychological and social lessons from history are just as critical as the engineering ones. We know from places like Orvieto and the Nottingham caves that communities can adapt to life below, but we also know it requires extraordinary social cohesion, careful management of resources, and a shared, unwavering purpose. The darkness that once hid people from swords and arrows might one day shield them from extreme weather or other modern threats. This speculative city is more than a flight of fancy, it is a mirror. It reflects our growing awareness of planetary vulnerabilities and our ancient, ingrained instinct to dig in when the sky turns hostile. The silent stones of Cappadocia and the carved cliffs of Mesa Verde whisper that this path is possible, that humanity has walked it before. Whether we choose to follow it again will depend on the choices we make today, on the surface, in the light. The enduring lesson of all these hidden cities is not about retreat, but about resilience, the timeless human capacity to reshape our world, even if that means redefining the world itself, to ensure that our story continues. From the deep wells of Derinkuyu to the modern dugouts of Coober Pedy, a single, profound truth echoes through the stone. When the world above grows hostile, humanity's oldest instinct is not to flee outward, but to turn inward, seeking the sanctuary of the earth itself. These 15 underground cities are far more than historical curiosities. They are monuments to a specific kind of genius, born not in times of peace and prosperity, but in moments of profound crisis. Each one represents a breathtaking convergence of communal cooperation, ingenious engineering, and a sheer, stubborn will to ensure that a way of life, a culture, a community does not simply vanish. They teach us that survival is not a solitary act but a collective project. It required the miner carving an air shaft in Cappadocia, the mother storing grain in Orvieto, the soldier etching his name in Naours, and the worshipper praying in a salt cathedral. Every individual played a part in a vast, silent symphony of endurance. The legacy of these places is not written on parchment or displayed in museums. It is etched into the darkness itself, in the soot stains on a kitchen ceiling, the smooth groove of a rolling stone door, the perfect geometry of a sunken church. They force us to expand our understanding of history itself. Our story is not merely one of conquests and kings under an open sky. It is equally a story of retreat, of strategic silence, of communities choosing to disappear in order to preserve what mattered most. As we face our own modern uncertainties, from environmental shifts to global tensions, these ancient shelters speak across the centuries. They do not offer a blueprint for hiding from the future, but a masterclass in resilience. They show us the power of adaptation, the strength found in unity, and the profound hope that even in the deepest dark, life finds a way to not just endure, but to create meaning. Which of these hidden worlds resonated with you the most? Was it the sheer scale of Derinkuyu, the sacred beauty of Lalibela, or the living reality of Coober Pedy? Share your thoughts below, and if you are captivated by history's greatest mysteries, subscribe to continue the journey together.